leading to some strong blustery winds across eastern areas. Across the north, we also have some cold air, and so that's bringing increasing amounts of hill snow over modest high ground of both northern England and also Scotland. Watch out for the rain, particularly towards the southwest, as rainfall totals building up as we go through today and into tomorrow could lead to some further flooding in places as well. In the south, staying relatively mild tonight, colder further north and always feeling colder where we have those brisk, strong winds coming in from the east. So a wet start to the day tomorrow for many. Across the southern parts there will be some breaks in the cloud, but also some heavy bursts to watch out for. Could be some rumbles of thunder as we go into the afternoon as well. Lots of cloud, lots of rain across much of central northern England, Wales and Northern Ireland. A bit of hill snow as well continuing at times. Meanwhile across Scotland, a bit of a west-east split in the east, feeling cold with those brisk winds coming in, and there'll be some rain, some hill snow around, but a brighter start to the day across the west of Scotland. And actually here it's going to stay largely dry and largely bright through much of the day, but most places sticking with the often cloudy and rather wet picture. Like I mentioned, some rumbles of thunder possible in the southwest, with the rain turning a bit showery here, less persistent, maybe even a bit of sunshine developing later on across parts of Cornwall and maybe Devon. Temperatures on paper tomorrow are going to be similar to today, but the winds ever so slightly lighter, and so feeling a little bit less raw across some parts towards the northeast in particular. More rain to come for many as we go through the end of the day, something a little bit drier towards the south-southwest at times maybe, but on the whole really as we go into this weekend the cloudy and often wet theme looks set to continue. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you to our global community for watching and listening to GB News. We're not only the #1 news channel in Britain, we're chosen by you around the world.
Good evening. This is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. On the M8 westbound at junction 19 off-slip, a broken down vehicle is causing restrictions. On the A55 Britannia Bridge, high winds remain in place until further notice. In Durham, the A19 southbound exit slip to the A1086 has one lane closed due to a breakdown, with recovery expected around 7:30 this evening. In Lincolnshire, congestion on the A46 northbound between the A1434 and the A57 is easing by just after 7 this evening. And on the trains, Cross Country and Great Western Railway report disruption on some routes. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
This year, the adventure of a lifetime could be on us.
Courtesy of Riviera Travel, there's a terrific £10,000 holiday for two to be won. Choose from over 30 worldwide destinations like Thailand, South Africa, New Zealand or even Sri Lanka. We'll also boost your bank account with a fabulous £30,000 in tax-free cash.
For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB19 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 27th of February. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Do you trust what you're being told? Good, because neither do I.
Those are just facts.
I'm Alex Armstrong, and on my show, we'll expose the spin.
Well, I want to answer that, because you didn't let me last time, because you always speak over me.
The broken promises.
To deny that is denying the truth.
And the hypocrisy.
We can allow.
Stop.
You think we can allow?
Politics, policy, parliament. Nothing is off limits. No sugarcoating, no fear of offence, just the truth laid bare. Tune in every Saturday and Sunday at 9 p.m. for Alex Armstrong Tonight, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Very, very good evening to you and welcome to Farage. With me tonight, your host, Martin Daubney. Coming up on tonight's action-packed show. Sir Keir Starmer is on the ropes in the biggest fight for his political career yet amidst the fallout of the disastrous Mandelson files release last night. But who threw the knockout blow?
Not get any worse than a bunch of scum, homophobic, racist, misogynistic.
Yes, it was his former Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner who forced him into a U-turn last night. Will it be Prime Minister Rayner that represents the future of the Labour Party? And in other news,
I wrote that tweet. I was just so emotionally charged and upset, and I still to this day can't quite believe that somebody's dropped their children off at a dance class, at a Taylor Swift dance class, and never got to pick them up.
As today, more evidence emerges that the Attorney General, Lord Hermer's fingerprints were all over the disastrous handling of the Southport riots. Is it time for him to also go? And finally,
the idea of a 22 billion black hole is nonsense. It's 2.7 trillion.
Yesterday, the Taxpayers Alliance has revealed that the national debt is now increasing at a record, an astonishing £500 million, £500 million every single day. So much for fixing the foundations of the economy. Now it's another quiet news day in politics. Here in Westminster, the storm clouds are gathering for the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer. That's all to come in tonight's show. But first, here's your news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you very much and good evening. The top stories breaking this hour. Donald Trump has signalled that he will back the Chagos Islands handover deal after he launched an attack on the agreement last month. The US president previously labelled the deal an act of great stupidity, prompting fears he could withdraw his previous support for it. The deal would see the UK transfer sovereignty of the islands whilst leasing back a joint UK-US military base on the largest island, Diego Garcia. In a social media post, Mr. Trump warned the US could militarily secure the base on the island if the lease agreement ever falls apart. Downing Street has said Sir Keir Starmer had discussed the Chagos Islands with Mr. Trump earlier today, adding that the UK and US would continue to work closely on the implementation of the deal. Parliament's Intelligence and Security Committee has said it cannot commit to a timetable for reviewing documents relating to Peter Mandelson's vetting to become ambassador to the US. Meanwhile, Sir Keir Starmer issued a public apology over the Peter Mandelson scandal, saying serious evidence has now emerged that he was misled. Speaking at an event in East Sussex, the Prime Minister said he entered politics out of service and duty and accused Mandelson of falling far short of that standard. He said while Mandelson's friendship with Jeffrey Epstein was known, no one knew the depth and the darkness of the relationship, and claims Mandelson repeatedly downplayed it during vetting. The Prime Minister told victims of Epstein's abuse he was sorry.
The victims of Epstein have lived with trauma that most of us can barely comprehend. And they've had to relive it again and again. I am sorry. Sorry for what was done to you. Sorry that so many people with power failed you. Sorry for having believed Mandelson's lies and appointed him.
An Iranian asylum seeker who came to the UK illegally on the back of a lorry in July of 2024 has been sentenced to 7.5 years for sexually assaulting a teenage girl. 29-year-old Ahmad Reza Khalafi previously pleaded guilty to sexually assaulting the teenage girl at St Albans Crown Court in December last year. His Honour Justice man handed Khalafi a 4.5-year custodial sentence and a further 3 years on licence. Khalafi was granted refugee status in the summer of 2024, claiming he would face persecution if he returned to Iran after converting to Christianity. His victim, 19-year-old Abby Johnson, who has waived her right to anonymity, told GB News she wants to save someone else from going through what she went through. And finally, Nigel Farage has unveiled Dan Thomas as Reform UK's new leader in Wales. Mr Thomas, who grew up in Wales, was the Conservative leader of Barnet Council from 2019 to 2022 and joined Reform UK in December. Mr Farage says the appointment strengthens Reform's push to challenge Labour in Wales as the party looks to convert frustration over jobs, living costs and devolution into votes. Those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, it's back to Martin.
You can now watch GB News live across the United States of America and the world on Truth Plus. Scan the QR code to find out more or visit gbnews.com/truth.
And welcome back to Farage with me, your host tonight, Martin Daubney.
I am sorry. Sorry for what was done to you.
The Prime Minister on death row, a government seemingly on life support. But where did it all start to go wrong for Sir Keir Starmer? Just days into his premiership back in July 2024, Sir Keir Starmer's disastrous handling of the Southport riots, in which he was widely criticised for besmirching everyone as far right. That set the tone for a tone-deaf Prime Minister. And next, the man who promised to end Tory sleaze, he became known as Free Gear Keir. When it emerged, his Covent Garden chum and Labour donor Lord Ali had paid for just about everything, from Sir Keir's spectacles to Lady Starmer's frock. And then came the budget.
Be freezing this Christmas without fuel at home.
Yes, next, British pensioners felt the chill of Starmer the granny harmer as he withdrew the winter fuel allowance after giving massive public sector pay rises. But pensioners, of course, well, they weren't the only ones. Next, British farmers were ploughed into, and Sir Keir Starmer earned his next nickname, this time Starmer the Farmer Harmer, as he and Rachel Reeves slapped them with an inheritance tax on family farms. And then came the mightiest of U-turns of all, perhaps on the grooming gang's National Inquiry scandal from this.
Calling for inquiries because they want to jump on a bandwagon of the far right.
Once again, the far right, and then came another screeching handbrake turn.
I've looked at her report. I've considered that material. I think she's right, and that's why there'll be a national inquiry.
And none of that is to mention the fact that we were promised this.
To go after the criminal gangs, to smash the gang networks.
To smash the smuggling gangs.
Smash the gangs.
To smash the gangs.
But far from smashing the gangs, Sir Keir Starmer's government only seemed to smash records. And then we received the Prime Minister, who has overseen more illegal channel crossings than any other. We've seen the government struggle to cut our welfare budget that now outsizes the GDP of the Islamic Republic of Iran, and an obsession with assisted dying, not just of the elderly, but for pubs, for restaurants, and indeed for any hotel not stuffed to the brim with asylum seekers. And whether it was 19 months of chaos, 15 U-turns begging the Americans to let him pay Mauritius to take our sovereign territory, or indeed kowtowing to China, it has all now, today, culminated in this.
This is the biggest scandal in British politics for over 1 century.
The biggest scandal in a century, from a government that promised to turn the pages on 14 years of Tory chaos. There's only one question tonight, it's this. Is it game over for Sir Keir Starmer? I'm delighted to be joined in the studio now by the editor of the Sunday Telegraph and the excellent columnist Alistair Heath, as well as my panel tonight. That's the former Conservative Attorney-General Sir Michael Ellis and the former Chairman of the Parliamentary Labour Party, Lord John Cryer. Gentlemen, welcome to the studio. It's a pleasure to have your company. I shall start with you, Alistair Heath. As I like to do on these occasions, we've set the picture there of a frankly disastrous political regime under Sir Keir Starmer. Your column in the Telegraph today, the headline speaks for itself. You say these are the humiliating death throes of Starmer's sordid regime. You think the Prime Minister's days are numbered?
Yes, I do. I don't know how many days are left, but clearly not as many as before. I think the Mandelson-Epstein scandal is a catastrophe for Starmer. To be honest, it's a monstrous scandal. It's one of the worst political scandals in this country for many, many decades. The fact that Mandelson continued to consort with this horrible man even after he was convicted, the fact that this was actually known, there were newspaper articles about this, so there were revelations about this, the horrible details, the fact that we now know that Mandelson literally sent emails that he just received from the cabinet, copying the Prime Minister and everything, to Epstein at the height of the financial crisis, thus allowing Epstein to have this inside information. It's incredible, shocking stuff. And unfortunately, Starmer brought him back in, and it's been a complete disaster, and he owns that decision. It's his decision. He should not have brought him back, right? He should have not brought him back. Mandelson turned out to be a disaster, and I think it will take down Starmer with him.
How long do you think he's got? There's an election coming in the next few weeks. There's also, of course, the huge raft of elections where they've been allowed to stand, of course, in Scotland, in Wales, and in the local elections. Is that when you think the pinch will come?
Well, it's hard to know. So you could have a situation where a cabinet minister suddenly says enough is enough, resigns, and sort of tries to trigger something like that. But that's not happened yet, so it may not happen. Documents may be released soon, which further expose Starmer and demonstrate his utter inability to act as a proper politician. If that happens, all better off. Alternatively, things calm down slightly. He then loses a by-election, maybe to the Greens, or maybe to Reform. That would be a disaster again. And, of course, there's a May election. I mean, you know, the Labour Party is notoriously bad at removing leaders, but it can't be that bad, right? It can't have a total death wish. You're talking about a party that's already under 20% of the polls and that's facing electoral Armageddon, and that is, you know, whose leader is clearly incompetent at politics and has just, you know, been engulfed in this major scandal. They have to do something.
Let's bring my panel in now. And I'm duty-bound to start with you, Lord Cryer, the former chairman of the Parliamentary Labour Party. Withering criticism there from Alistair Heath. It has to be said, it very much feels now as though the tanks are firmly parked on the Prime Minister's lawn. Is it the end of days? It feels like the final days of Boris Johnson's regime.
I'm not sure. It could. I mean, it could. Look, it could be. Just going back to the Mandelson scandal, I think we should start by remembering that the reason that we're discussing this now is because those victims came forward to accuse Epstein. And many times in this studio, we've discussed the grooming gangs in North Midlands, the abuse and exploitation by men. And now we're talking about rich and powerful men, one in particular, abusing women. And Mandelson, well, for a start, Mandelson might be guilty of treason. I know we've got to be careful about what we say in legalistic terms, but he was passing secrets to another power, effectively another power. So he's probably guilty of that. On Keir, I've known Keir for a long time now. He's got some really serious questions to answer. Now, he was told twice, as far as we know, that Mandelson's relationship with Epstein continued. The first time was as far back as 2023 when Jim Pickard from the Financial Times said it, I think it was at a news conference.
It was.
He said he stayed in Epstein's house while Epstein was in jail for underage sex. Keir's got to try and explain, and I don't know how you do it, why he then decided to appoint Mandelson after all that and the previous scandals. I will say this in Keir's defence, and this is why, you know, I still have time for Keir. I saw him as chairman of the Parliamentary Labour Party. I saw him close up for about 10 years as leader of the opposition, and before that, as shadow Brexit secretary. As leader of the opposition, he did tackle the one thing that really needed tackling in the Labour Party, and it's something that still fills me with shame, and that is the scourge of anti-Semitism, which ripped through our ranks. It was present in councils, it was present up and down the country, and he showed some bottle in taking it on. Prior to that, this sounds a bit counterintuitive, but when you're a cabinet minister or a shadow minister, the one thing that you hate doing, and it's the same for the Conservatives, is speaking to your own MPs and your own peers. Because very often, some of them have got it in for you. Some of them have done the job so they know more than you. Some of them want your job. Every time I said to Keir, something had happened, you know, to do with Brexit over the weekend, I said to him, on a Monday night, you've got to come and speak to Labour MPs. He never bottled it. He never bottled it. He never ducked it. And he's one of the very, very few people who've done that.
Sir Michael Ellis,
is,
do you think Sir Keir Starmer is finished?
He is finished. I mean, politically, he is finished. The problem is he going to do the right thing? And I'm not convinced that he is. And because I don't think he does the right thing for the country. The litany of disasters over the past 18 months that you opened the show with, Martin, is an indication of the fact that their focus is on what they want to do, not on what the country wants them to do. And I don't think there's any reason to believe they're going to change their tune now. So it's in the national interest for there to be a change of Prime Minister, and it's in the national interest, actually, that there be a change of government. Are they going to facilitate that? I doubt it, because leopards don't change their spots. So what we're going to have is this continuation of this saga with this captain of a sinking ship, and it is a sinking ship. His government is a sinking ship. And there are people fostering around to try and take over from this sinking ship, but they'll go down with the sinking ship as well if they don't change these disastrous, unpopular policies, harming farmers, harming grannies, granny harmer, farmer harmer, all this sort of stuff is, as you've been saying, is what really needs changing.
Final word to you, if I could, Alice Heathrow, about in the next part to talk about the potential replacement, potential future. Prime Minister Angela Rayner. How does that grab you?
Well, I think it's quite likely. The other option is Ed Miliband. People downplay that option often, but I think it's quite possible. I think, I think for the Conservatives and for Reform, and for the Greens and the Lib Dems, for all the opposition parties, getting rid of Keir Starmer would be a very good thing for them. Because, let's say Rayner becomes Prime Minister or Miliband, they would lack the legitimacy of somebody who just won a massive majority at a general election, which means the narrative would then change to, why are you Prime Minister? Why are you doing stuff that wasn't in the manifesto? No one voted for you. There needs to be another general election. And the chorus would rise and rise and rise because everybody would have an incentive to have an election except for the Labour Party. So I think that would help precipitate the sorts of changes that, the sorts of early general election scenarios that some people have talked about. But, I could see Rayner, I could see Miliband. From my perspective, it would be a disaster.
Al Khan's is
worse
a dark
than
horse.
Pardon?
Al Khan's, the Labour MP.
Right. Well, people have mentioned him. I've met him. He's a very interesting guy. I cannot see how he could possibly win, but maybe I'm missing something here.
OK, gentlemen, a cracking start to the show. We have to leave it there. And quick statements to read out here. Lord Mandelson has previously denied wrongdoing related to Epstein, saying, I was never culpable or complicit in his crimes. Like everyone else, I learned the actual truth about him after his death. He also said he relied on assurances of his innocence. That turned out later to be horrendously false. Thank you to Alissa and to my panel. Coming up in just a moment's time, as I just mentioned, what does the future hold for the Labour Party? Does anybody welcome the prospect of the Prime Minister, Angela Rayner? Yes, here we go.
Not get any worse than a bunch of scum, homophobic, racist, misogynistic.
Yes, it was his former Deputy Prime Minister, Angela Rayner, who forced him into a U-turn last night. Will it be Prime Minister Angela Rayner that represents the future of the Labour Party? That's next.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
And you see, I would have thought that the stammer business had gone away, right? But it hasn't gone away. It'll always be with you, but you control it very well. Indeed, we should point out that Gareth has his voice coach, Amy, in the studio today, here in case anything goes wrong.
Yeah, it's an ongoing thing, having a stammer. Unfortunately, there's no cure for it. But I'm part of a speech therapy programme called the Maguire Programme. Myself and my coach, Amy, is on the same programme, and we help each other. And we learn a new way of breathing, new way of speaking, and most importantly, a new way of tackling the mindsets which come with having a stammer, which is fear. This is my most fearful situation.
But my friend, when you get up on that stage and you put a microphone in your hand and you sing, are you worried about it then? Does it manifest itself then?
No, I mean, every time I sing, or, I've done big West End shows where I've had to act and, read pages of dialogue.
Yeah.
It's just not an issue because I adopt a different persona. I'm not me. I'm, whatever mask I'm wearing, whatever character I'm playing. I'm really unsure how I'll fare without my top on in this next show that I'm doing, Boy Band in the Buff, but let's see.
What is the stammer caused by then? Because some people, you said it's incurable, so that means that there's actually something, there's an issue.
Yeah, it's certainly a kind of mindset thing. It's actually based upon fear, and we have to sort of retrain ourselves. And if you're scared of heights, for instance, what's the best thing to do? To go to the highest building, and eventually you'll get close to the edge.
GB News, the People's Channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Farage with me, your host tonight, Martin Daubney. Now, as Sir Keir Starmer fights the battle of his political career to save his life, the question that dangles over Westminster like the sword of Damocles is, of course, who could possibly replace him? And there she is, it's Angela Rayner. It was, of course, Sir Keir Starmer's former Deputy PM, Angela Rayner, who led the rebels yesterday in the fight to have the Intelligence and Security Committee determine which of the Mandelson files would be released.
Given the public disgust and the sickening behaviour of Peter Mandelson and the importance of transparency, should we not have the ISC not have the same role now in keeping public confidence in the process?
Now, it's only a matter of hours later when the government backed down, did another U-turn and succumbed to the Rayner rebels. So is this a sign of what is to come? A Prime Minister, Angela Rayner, one way or the other. Whatever happens, it is safe to agree with what Lord Maurice Glassman said on this very show last night.
Well, I think if we're going to understand it profoundly, this to me is the end of New Labour.
So is it the end of New Labour and perhaps the beginning of Prime Minister Angela Rayner? It's an astonishing prospect, and to discuss it, I'm delighted now to be joined by the trade unionist and the writer, the excellent Paul Embry. Paul, welcome to the show. It's been way, way too long, my friend. I still think your book, Despised, is an excellent tome. On to the topic of the day. Angela Rayner as Sir Keir Starmer's replacement. Seriously?
Well, good evening, Martin. I think that you, in this position, need to examine the records of the potential candidates. And crucially, I think what the Labour Party would need to do is to consider who would hold most appeal for the country. And I have to say, in my view, Angela Rayner, whatever there is good about her, and she has many attributes, there's no question about that, particularly I think in relation to her backstory. She's one of the few people in the senior echelons of the Labour Party these days who can genuinely lay claim to having come from a working class background and worked in a real job. But I think that in terms of winning elections, I think she would have difficulty in appealing to the country. I think similarly, Wes Streeting. I think similarly, Ed Miliband, particularly when you look at some of the sort of radical net zero stuff. My own choice, if it came to it, would be somebody like Shabana Mahmood, who I think is showing capability in terms of the brief that she holds and is a conviction politician. There's a dearth of those, frankly, in politics. So for me, Angela Rayner, whatever her attributes, would be a no.
I've got to say, Paul Embry, you're a working class lad. So am I. I've always thought that Angela Rayner is a upper middle class person's version of what a working class hero looks like. Working class heroes don't dodge 40 grand tax bills. Working class heroes don't buy a second home in Brighton. I just think there's a disconnect between the reality of what working class voters actually aspire to be and what Angela Rayner represents. Am I being harsh?
Not necessarily, but I think that's a wider problem in the Labour Party, actually, Martin. I mean, Keir Starmer makes great play of the fact that he says that this is the most working class cabinet the Labour Party has ever had. Actually, when you drill down into it, they aren't particularly working class. It's true, I think, that none of the current cabinet went to private school. I think I'm correct in saying that. But actually, when you look at their backstories, most of them, almost all of them, came through what is now a bit of an established pipeline into the senior ranks of the Labour Party. So, you know, they went to university, they became either research assistants, or they worked for an NGO, or they worked for a charity or a think tank, and then managed to find a safe seat. So although they might have gone to comprehensive schools, actually very few of them in reality have got that real experience of going out and doing what you might call a proper job. I once said, half in jest, that all prospective Labour Party parliamentary candidates should be forced to work in the private sector on the minimum wage for 2 years. That should be part of the qualifying criteria before they could become a candidate. As I say, half in jest, but I think there's a truth in that, because actually there is still a massive disconnect between the parliamentary Labour Party and what you might call red wall constituencies. I think that's undeniable.
I totally agree. Now, Paul Embry, I've been asking all of my guests all day today for a one-word answer to this question. I shall ask you, is the Keir Starmer finished?
Yes, toast.
Thank you very much, Paul Embry, for being so succinct. Always a pleasure to have your company. Thank you very much indeed, my friend. Let's get back to my panel now. I'm delighted to be joined still by the former Conservative Attorney-General, Sir Michael Ellis, and the former chairman of the Parliamentary Labour Party, and that's Lord John Cryer. Sir Michael, I should start with you first. A lot of people might be saying you've got to be careful what you wish for. Well, if Keir Starmer goes and Angela Rayner is the leader, Tories come.
Well, look, the fact of the matter is what we need is an election if Starmer goes, because then the people get to decide. But look, let's be realistic here. I mean, first of all, is the Labour Party going to have the gumption to remove Keir Starmer? That's the first question, and I have my doubts about that. I hope they do, but I don't think they're going to be focused on the national interest. They're going to be looking at self-interest. But as far as Angela's concerned, I've got a soft spot for Angela on a personal level, actually. We jousted over the dispatch boxes in the House of Commons a fair bit, and she's a politically savvy and she's a tough cookie. But I agree with Paul Embry there, I don't think that Angela is the answer that Labour are looking for. The reality is that none of the Labour Party, the Parliamentary Labour Party, really are working class. They like to say that they are, but this obsession they have with class isn't borne out by reality. Most of them are SW1, political Westminster, lifelong sort of officialdom, and they have about as much resonance with the working class. This is why you can see now this factionalism that's breaking out, and also other parties that are coming up on the left, because there's this realisation that no one really has the answer to this Labour sinking ship.
Lord Cryer, it's a fair point to raise. The Labour Party has abandoned the working classes, has done years ago. The working classes, particularly the white working classes, have tipped into reform. If the answer is Angela Rayner, surely the Labour Party is asking the wrong questions.
I think I've got a lot of time for Paul. I've known Paul a long time, but I think he was being a bit unfair. I mean, Angie's story is absolutely genuine, and Wesley's story is genuine. I can come to that in a minute, if you like. But the big mistake that was made under Corbyn, and it was his responsibility, was to go for a second referendum on Brexit. Now, an awful lot of people and I can remember Northern and Midlands MPs, I was always a London MP, saying to me, well, that's saying to my voters, you're a bunch of stupid racists, go back and do it again. That's exactly what we were saying to them. And Boris Johnson spotted that and he exploited it. But I don't blame Boris Johnson. I would have done the same in his position. But he exploited it very, very successfully.
But Keir Starmer was the champion of the people's vote. He felt the same. He's now the Prime Minister. That's the problem.
But when you say he felt the same, you mean the second referendum?
He was the champion of the people's vote.
No,
time and time again he wants to overturn Brexit.
His position on Brexit was always clear. He was always a Remainer. He campaigned for Remain. But I was at the shadow cabinet meetings where our policy was changed, from a position of accepting the referendum and delivering Brexit to having a second referendum. Well, the policy was, let's have a deal first, and then we'd have a second referendum on that deal. I mean, it was an utter disaster. I know the people who delivered that in the shadow cabinet, who delivered that change, and it wasn't Keir Starmer, to be fair to him. It was led by Jeremy. I'm not going to name the others, but I think Jeremy has to take responsibility for
Let's
that.
get back to the here and the now, if we can. If Sir Keir Starmer is got rid of, is it really... Do you have the talent in the tank in the Labour Party? Angela Rayner, Andy Burnham has been blocked from returning. Wes Streeting, I mean, he's been closely linked with Mandelson on the campaign trail in the past. Is there anybody really? Is there just a complete lack of talent?
No, there isn't. I mean, there's lots of talented people. I mean, actually, there are lots of talented people in all political parties, as far as I can see. But going on to Wes, since you mentioned him, I mean, he is actually genuine working class East Ender. He grew up in Stepney in a council flat, single parent. I don't know if you might not be aware of this, but I'm the person who recruited him to the Labour Party, so it's all my fault. He was living in Romford. He moved out of the East End. He lived with his dad, and he came to his first Labour Party meeting when he was 16. He turned up, and the average age dropped by about 20 years, I think, when he walked through the door. He's extremely able. But when you say he's been closely associated with Mandelson paid him a campaigning visit when Wes was a key seat in 2015. It was one of those seats where we poured resources in. It was Ilford North. We poured resources in order to win them. All big parties do that. And I went campaigning for him. Actually, he campaigned for me when I was the MP for Hornchurch. Took time off school to do it.
We've got to move on. Another huge problem, of course, is that Angela Rayner, in every poll for months and months, is set to lose a seat to Reform UK, and Wes Streeting is set to lose his seat to a pro-Gaza independent. Even the Labour cabinet don't seem to sit in what you would even consider now to be a safe Labour seat. That's a huge problem. I'm being told we have to move on. We've got another topic to get back to, but thank you very much, Michael Ellis and Lord Cryer. Now, moving up, more evidence emerges that the Attorney General, Lord Hermer's fingerprints were all over the disastrous handling of the Southport riots. So, is it time for him to go now too? That's next.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
There's more very heavy rain to come across parts of Spain and Portugal and North Morocco as we head into the weekend. Strong winds continue to be an issue here as well. A bit breezy in the Canaries, but plenty of sunshine here. Things turning a bit brighter in Catalonia, but there's that next zone of wet weather coming into Spain and Portugal. Showery for Italy and some heavy showers for Croatia and the mainland of Greece as well. Generally dry in Cyprus with some hazy sunshine here. The Canaries remain the place to be for dry, sunny weather this weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Good evening. This is your latest Met Office weather update for GB News. Plenty more wet weather to come as we go through the rest of today and into tomorrow. Also, some significant hill snow building up over some northern parts. At the moment, we have low pressure to the southwest of us, and it's this that's bringing some fairly strong winds coming in from the east, particularly across northern areas. And we have colder air here as well, which is why we're readily seeing some snow building up over the hills and mountains of northern England and parts of Scotland. Could cause some disruption with several centimetres lying in some places. Otherwise, it is looking cloudy and wet for many of us. With that, then, temperatures not dropping a huge amount towards the south, but across northern areas, a few degrees lower than last night. Could be a bit of frost around in some sheltered places away from those brisk winds coming in from the east, and where we get any clear skies. Through tomorrow morning, the brightest weather will be across western parts of Scotland. Cloudier, wetter and wintry further east. Meanwhile, it's a very wet start across much of Northern Ireland. The rain continuing to build up through the day, so we could see some problems. 60 to 80 millimetres perhaps of rain building up across some of the higher ground. Also a cloudy wet start across much of England and Wales, and again in the southwest and across parts of Wales. we could see some impacts as a result of the heavy rain that we've seen through today and will continue into tomorrow. The rain actually across some parts of the southwest will become a bit more showery, so breaking up a little bit, some drier, perhaps even brighter spells, but with that, the potential for a few rumbles of thunder. Temperatures in the south look similar to today, maybe a degree higher, 12, maybe 13 Celsius possible, but further north, still a cold feel, especially with that brisk easterly wind. Then into Saturday, some brighter weather across some parts of northern England, eastern England as well at times, but otherwise, again, a lot of cloud and a lot of rain. The rain perhaps not as heavy as what we're seeing at the moment, but nonetheless, it could cause some problems just because how wet the ground is. More cloudy, often wet weather to come as we go through the back end of the weekend and into next week. Bye-bye.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Welcome back to Farage with me, Martin Thorby. Now, it seems that at every single turn, whenever a bad government decision is made these days, the Attorney-General, Lord Hermer, has his fingerprints all over it. Take the Chagos surrender deal, which is edging closer to completion this evening after President Donald Trump, within this past hour, seemed to give it his backing. Now, that means one thing. A £35 billion price tag dumped squarely on the taxpayer. And then there's Hermer's involvement in the deploying of so-called human rights laws to hound Iraqi war veterans. And now newly released papers appear to show that Lucy Connolly's racial hatred charge was actively fast-tracked by Hermer's office, seemingly to make a political example of Lucy Connolly. Now, taken all together, the question is obvious. Does he care about the interests of British people? And is it time for Lord Hermer also to bite the bullet? Well, I'm joined now in the studio by my panel, the former Conservative Attorney-General, Sir Michael Ellis, and the former Chairman of the Parliamentary Labour Party, Lord John Cryer. Sir Michael, I shall start with you. A lot of bad decisions seem to be rooted around Lord Hermer. Is it time for him to get the bullet as well as Sir Keir
absolutely, absolutely. And I think he will. I mean, I think he'll be out the door, feet first, as soon as Starmer goes. I don't think any replacement, any of the people we've been talking about, whether it be Wes Streeting, Angela Rayner, they'd be crazy to retain him. He's absolutely lock, stock and barrel, part of the problem with Keir Starmer. And as you've rightly articulated, so many of the crises that have hit this Labour government over the last 18 months have been linked in some way to Lord Hermer and his decision-making. And the impression has been given that it's not the interests of this country that is the main focus for the Prime Minister and the Attorney-General. Look, the Office of Attorney-General is supposed to be a quiescent one. It's not supposed to be a newsmaker. It's supposed to be something that helps the government get through its agenda. The very fact that it's been sort of headline news, the various decisions of Lord Hermer, is, in my view, it's a bad sign. And whether it's Chagos, the fingerprints are on so many of these significant problems, this obsession with the ECHR and so on. So I think there's a whole litany of disasters that have been caused by erroneous thinking in terms of what the priority should be for any government of this country, a government that cares about this country first and foremost.
Lord Cryer, let's bring you in now on this point. There's very much a feeling that the human rights lawyer Prime Minister we have is deploying the human rights lawyer to do his dirty work, Lord Hermer. Simply the stink is too high now.
No, I think the job of the Attorney-General and the Solicitor-General is to give legal opinion to the government. Now, for instance, well, you can think of many examples where the Attorney General has to give an opinion. So, for instance, I can remember a friend of mine was Attorney General when we went to war in Iraq. I voted against the Iraq War 7 times, but that's neither here nor there. What he had to give was a legal opinion on whether, for instance, bombing missions were legal or illegal. Now, he then got stick from people like me, I suppose, because he gave the green light for those bombing missions. But he wasn't the architect. And Richard's in the same position. He's not the architect of a lot of the things that he's got stick for. He has to give a legal opinion on whether that's legal, whether that fits into the legal framework. You know.
It's very fair for John to say that, and to a large extent he's right, but there's an aspect of that that's wrong, which is that law is not a mathematical equation. It isn't. We're not in a science lab. Law can be interpreted in various ways. And if you are of a left-wing persuasion, you can genuinely interpret, your interpretation of the law can say one thing, when somebody else might say a different thing. So I'm afraid ideology isn't neutral here, and the Attorney General's role is to have one foot in politics and one foot in the law, not be a slave to the law or, for that matter, to politics.
OK, well, on this very topic now, we've got some breaking news for you here on GB News, and it's on that Chagos Islands deal, and it's this. The US ambassador to the UK has taken to X moments ago and has said this. The ideal outcome would be for the United Kingdom not to transfer sovereignty of the Chagos Islands, but it was the best deal on the table for successive UK governments. And I respect this view, particularly in its guarantees of our profound long-term security imperatives to promote peace, stability and prosperity in the Indian Ocean region. As the President emphasised, the US retains the right to maintain and to reinforce our security interests on Diego Garcia, if needed, in the future. This is a significant breaking news moment here, Sir Michael Ellis. This seems all now that basically the Chagos Islands have been surrendered.
Yeah, it's a historic mistake. It will go down in history as a historic mistake. It's not in Western security interests, it's not in UK national security interests, and it's not in the United States national interests. I noticed President Trump has tweeted about things as well and how he won't allow anything bad to happen. He's not going to be president forever. He's got 3 years left of his term. If the security of those islands is not as strong as it was, when the weak president comes along, there'll be further problems. There's no need to have given these islands up. It's an absolute disgrace that this has happened. And frankly, I'm furious about it. I first wrote about the Chagos Islands, did an op-ed 2 years ago. They should not be relinquished. There's no need for them to be relinquished. It was an advisory opinion, didn't have to be followed. This is a big mistake.
Lord Cryan, a lot of people are saying this was a pointless surrender and a very expensive surrender, and now it appears it's a fait accompli. This will be on Sir Keir Starmer's copybook for the rest of the time.
Well, the act has got to go through, the bill has got to go through Parliament first. What I would say is that, as Michael said, there was an international ruling. Now, it wasn't binding, it was advisory, but the government's taken the view that even though it was advisory, we should abide by it. It seems to have been supported by Washington in a slightly ambivalent kind of way. I wonder if we should have perhaps hesitated before going down this particular path.
But why is it worth... what I don't understand here is, why is it worth the political capital? Where is the votes in doing this?
And the financial capital.
Why is it worth any of that? It's an extraordinary decision to have made. If Starmer is ousted in the next few weeks or months, that's his legacy. Is that his legacy, where he's given away British territory? For what? For what purpose? How is that a vote winner for Labour? It's a disastrously expensive policy, and it's an absolute disaster for the whole country.
OK, thank you very much, gentlemen. A significant breaking news line there, and moving on next in just a moment's time.
The idea of a 22 billion black hole is nonsense. It's 2.7 trillion.
That's right, the Taxpayers Alliance has today revealed that the national debt is now increasing by an astonishing, a record £500 million every single day. £500 million, so much for fixing the foundations.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day.
Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Welcome back to Farage with me. Tonight, your host, Martin Dorman. Now, many of you will remember one of the first things that Labour did upon entering office was this.
£22 billion black hole.
The government has inherited a £22 billion black hole in the public finances.
We have inherited a projected overspend of £22 billion.
Yeah, the £22 billion black hole, that was their Brexit means Brexit mantra, wasn't it? It gave them the excuse, of course, to hike taxes by 40 billion quid in its first budget. Now, to this day, its existence remains doubted, but to Reform UK leader Nigel Farage, the black hole is, in fact, much, much larger.
The idea of a 22 billion black hole is nonsense. It's 2.7 trillion.
Well, that is a supersized black hole, and whilst Westminster bickered and quarrelled about the size of a fiscal black hole, perhaps they were missing the bigger picture. Yes, our friends at the Taxpayers Alliance has revealed a shocking new milestone figure. Look at that on your screens now, a live ticker tape of national debt. We are now borrowing a whopping £500 million every single day. That's right, £500 million every day. That's money that you, your children and your children's children will spend their entire lives paying off. On that cheerful note, I'm joined in the studio by the media campaign manager at the Taxpayers Alliance, William Yarwood, of course, as my panel, Sir Michael Ellis and also Lord John Cryer. Captain Yarwood, let's start with you. £500 million every single day. It's mind-bending. How did we get there?
We got here because various governments, both Conservative and Labour, have lived beyond their means. And actually, instead of, actually cutting spending and living within their means, they've either taxed more or essentially they've actually borrowed more from people who are willing to give us money. But the question is, Martin, as we've seen with, various crises in the past, including the Greek debt crisis, there comes a point where lenders are unwilling to basically, give Britain or give other governments debt in order to fund their spending promises. I mean, you heard Nigel on the clip, £2.7 trillion. It's actually now £2.8 trillion. And like you said, £510 million a day. And you talk about the families will be paying this off, their children. Actually, the government debt, £510 million a day, that's the equivalent of over 4,000 people's lifetime taxes, right? 4,000 households' lifetime taxes. And considering that's going up every single day, that means people's taxes are actually just disappearing into thin air on this kind of nonsense.
The debt increases by £5,904 every second.
Yeah.
In the time it took me to say that, that's 20 grand.
Yeah, that's 20 grand.
And the point is, if it's ratcheting up so fast, William, can we ever pay this debt off?
Yeah, so we at the Taxpayers Alliance did a paper a little while ago, just before the budget, to actually try and give Rachel Reeves some ideas. I dare to say she didn't actually accept any of them, but, many such cases. And we actually presented a 10-year, a 15-year, a 20-year and a 25-year plan for getting the national debt down to 60% of our GDP, which is sort of an internationally recognised safe standard. And let's just take the 25-year plan just for a second, which is the sort of safest, most long-term plan. That would require a budget surplus, Martin, of £59 billion a year and a fiscal correction in the current year of over £120 billion because, of course, we currently have a budget deficit of £63 billion. Now, my question is any government actually going to really address this? Because that would require really, really, really hard questions about government spending.
And that's the next point. Look at it. It's like a doomsday clock. It's not counting down, it's counting up. Lord Cryer, we have a government, unfortunately, it can't cut costs. Every time it tries to cut costs, there's some kind of backbench rebellion, particularly on benefits. And at the same time, high tax, high spend, shoveling money to their union pals. The only way out of this mess is a world of pain, high taxes.
When you say shoveling money to the union pals, they didn't give money to the general secretaries of the unions. It went in pay rises. And bearing in mind that the trains have been in gridlock for months, much of the network, because of pay disputes, they're now not. That had to be settled. While during the 14 years previously, before the last general election, we had probably the most persistent stagnation in wages in probably 200 years. The national debt, when we're not about to pay it off, and nobody's got a magic wand, but it's been with us about 250 years. It started really during the Napoleonic Wars. We have to pay for public services. We have to pay for the army. Actually, we have to pay a lot more for the army, in my view, than we are doing. We have to pay for the police, for law and order. Now, that money, it doesn't grow on a magic tree. And unfortunately, what we did inherit was a genuine black hole that we didn't know was there. It's been itemised. For instance, under Rishi Sunak's government, they spent the reserve 3 times over. That had a lot to do with what we inherited, which was the worst inheritance since 1974.
Lord Cryer can blame the Tories all we like. In the time, you just blame the Tories. The national debt's gone up about 50 grand.
Yeah.
And listen, seriously, the debt has gone up 21.25 million in the course of this show.
Well, Martin, the first thing I would do is not give £35 billion to Mauritius, right? That's the first thing I'd do, which is more than their entire GDP, several times over. Look, you're going to need the Starship Enterprise to get us out of this black hole. What we've got is an absolute travesty because the public services have not improved as a result of pumping more money in. Most people would say public services have decreased in quality, whether it be policing, whether it be in so many areas of our service. The military, for example, far more should be invested in our military, but instead it's been going down. So it's a question of busted priorities, and it's a question of, frankly, incompetence in the financial sphere.
William, your quick 20 seconds. How do we get out of this mess? Is it even possible?
Yes, you need to reduce government spending, you need to get serious about government waste, and you need to actually have a consensus between all the main political parties that this is not sustainable. And actually, if you care about the future and you care about your kids, you should not be leaving this to them to pay off.
William Yule with Taxpayers Alliance, always a pleasure, never a chore. Sir Michael Ellis, excellent tonight. Lord Cryer, absolutely splendid to have your company. Thank you, one, and thank you all. Now, special treat tonight, State of the Nation is hosted by the magnificent Alex Armstrong, standing in for Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg. Alex, what's on your menu?
Thank you very much, Martin. Look, I'm going to be tearing into that hollow apology by the Prime Minister today. It's really wound me up because there was some language in there to disguise what I think is the real story of the day. So I'm going to be tearing into that at the top of my show. We're also going to be talking about that breaking Chagos news tonight. Donald Trump has obviously signalled his support, but is it all going to go smooth sailing? I've got the man to talk about that coming into the studio. We're also going to talk about Rupert Lowe's rape gang inquiry. It's not being reported very much in the mainstream media, but of course, as you know, Martin, here on GB News, we talk about the stories nobody else will. That's all coming up very shortly for you all after the weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good evening. This is your latest Met Office weather update for GB News. Plenty more wet weather to come as we go through the rest of today and into tomorrow. Also, some significant hill snow building up over some northern parts. At the moment, we have low pressure to the south.